Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land and fellow brewtubers. This is Kurt from Fermentations Adventures coming back in with a special presentation. I don't know. Just going to do a quick discussion and a tasting on camera and a scenario. So let's talk about, and really, this has been a while in the making. I can't even read my dumb cans, but yeah, this was canned around October 20th of last year, 2024. So yeah, this is my German style Altbier that I brewed up this guy. This beer was brewed again last year. It was entered in the Homebrew Happy Hour Alt Pokal where it didn't do well. They gave me great scores, which they give great scores. You want to get a 45 on a beer, send it to the Homebrew Happy Hour competition, because as they say, most of them are not BJCP judges. But anyway, I brewed it for that. That didn't do well there. I also entered it in a couple of other competitions. SNERC, the Southern New England Regional Homebrew Competition, which is our Connecticut competition, entered it there last year. This placed second in its category, which was kind of like in a category with Vienna lagers and Marzens and such. So it took second in there. So it's a pretty decent beer. It was a first run alt beer recipe for me. Again, a lot of different stuff in here. Pilsner malt, Vienna malt, Munich 3, actually Munich 2, Cara Munich, Carafa for color. So anyway, recipe's not too interesting. Really, the whole point of this and having these cans and this other can with a bunch of Sharpie marker on it, which I'll read off, was to test the recalibration of my canning machine. So looking back, I have an October benchmark canner, which I love. I've canned a lot of beer on that thing over the time I've had it. But it seemed to have fallen a little bit out of calibration for one reason or the other. When I sent out beers for the fruit experiment last year, I had a can that leaked, and kind of made a mess at Nick's house. Thankfully, it wasn't my house; it was Nick's house. In the box, there was a bit of a mess in there, and I think some of the cans overall, once they warmed up, from being shipped, because it was shipped in the early summer or so. Cans get warm, beer gets warm, pressure goes up, and then once you chill it down again, the cans get a little soft. So I think I had a little bit of issue with some of the pressure. But yeah, basically I was desperate need of calibrating my canner, my can seamer. Got the information from October, got the equipment needed, and I calibrated it. So one of the first cans I calibrated is this can, or after I calibrated, one of the first cans I seen is this can. Again, I'm calling this the test can of the alt beer. And really, I canned it. I left it at room temperature based on the notes. Room temperature in the basement, which is probably in the low 70s for 24 hours or so. Which, again, it come from the keg, warmed up to room temperature. Then I decided let's test the seam, see how it goes to make sure it didn't leak. I then put it in a water bath on a... I don't know if I did it probably I did the water bath on my small Andro foundry. I set the water to 110 degrees and left it for 2.5 hours to see, how things would hold up. Again, that's kind of an example of, other than, I don't know, this is probably kind of an extreme example of what you would get, shipping your beer in the summer. Then as well, I said, well, 110 works, so how about if I just raise the temperature of this to 160? So I raised it to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, left it for 2.5 hours, right? And see how the can fared. So again, this is at the extreme end of the temperatures that a can is meant to hold. Again, the can just came out of the fridge and is still really, really solid, which was great. So I'm really happy with how the calibration went. Worked really well. Here's another one that I actually labeled. This one's firm as well. So canning calibration seems to be a success. Although I did send out some of the beer that I sent out. I was the hub this year for my amber ale. I think one or two of the cans might have leaked a tiny bit of letting in letting out a little bit of the CO2 based on some of the reviews. I know, or maybe maybe it wasn't the can's fault. Maybe it was just my fault when I was actually canning the beer and putting the beer in cans and whatnot. But again, right now I think the seaming calibration process worked great. But anyhow, that's the how. Why am I making this video? So basically, this has been in a can for a year, and this beer was treated in the worst case scenario, right? 160 degrees. Any sort of oxygen that was in here in this beer was definitely promoted to interact with the malts that was in here. Now I'm comparing two cans that I've canned over a year ago and trying to basically say, hey, which beer got oxidized, which one looks worst. I really should have been recording this video a year ago. December of 2024 would have been great, but recording this now at December of 2025. I got everything, I had stuff set up, and I'm like, yeah, I should just get this so at least it's not sitting around my beer fridge any longer. I was holding on these for quite a while. So let's just, first things first, I have the same sample glass here, these little tulips. Let me open these again, a good hiss. This is the, again, just this can would have been stored cold ever since it was canned, right, in my fridge. I can't remember a lot about this beer. Oh, damn, this sample glass sucks. Thought it was cleaned, but what do you got when you do a dirty glass? Got some bubbles on the side here. But yeah, this is a really light, really very clear sample glass. Apologize for that. These guys are not very clear at all. Maybe I need to grab different sample glasses. I try to knock the bubbles off here. Who cares? Yeah, after being in the fridge for a year, this guy's really clear. Very light. I just got done reviewing a bunch of amber ales. It's a little bit later on the SRM scale than the amber ales would be. It's probably right around the 10, 11, 12 range, I would think. But yeah, this is the beer that's been in a can for a year. Might be showing up a little dark here, but to me it's showing, very light amber. So let's open up the beer can that was mashed and see how it compares. Again, knock some of the bubbles off the glass here. Wow, that's crazy. They both look identical, which, again, same beer. A lot of good carbonation, really nice foam cap on both. But they look identical. So again, if there was any sort of oxidation, so there's either two arguments here, right? Either both of these beers are now equally oxidized, heating one up to 160 in the short term. Over time, this has been in the fridge long enough so that they kind of equalized. Or the other argument is that there's really no color change with any of the oxygen ingress with this recipe. Or I somehow did a really insanely good job canning these that there was no residual oxygen. Considering I'm canning on a dual filler, I doubt that was the case. But anyway, let's go in for a sniff of both of these, see what they smell like. Yep. Remember that. Okay. Yeah, so not going to do a triangle test. Probably should do a triangle test this to see if I could pick out a difference. To me, they smell very similar. They both have a subtle nutty note to both. Again, getting like a nutty malt note. Again, this has a this recipe has a good amount of Vienna malt in it. Again, I kind of think when I smell beers with a lot of Vienna in it, that's kind of the note that I get from it. That kind of light nuttiness, not a peanut when I say nuttiness, but probably Again, not an almond, but like in the some of those nuts, maybe a hazelnut if you're not biting into it. Some of those aromas, but that's kind of the nuttiness I get from this. Again, light malt, a light roasted malt. All right, getting a little bit of metallic aroma from that one. Again, more light malt toasted. Again, we say light roasted malt. That's probably coming from the Vienna and some of the Cara Munich that's in here. So again, there's more of a kind of a toasty malt character for both. A light bread character. Yeah, I'm not getting anything metallic off this one. Yeah, there is a little metallicness going on in here, I guess. All right, so let me try both. Yeah, I think the malt presence really fell off for this one. Not getting anything that I would say like any of the obvious oxidation characters on the. Again, this is just the one that was cared cared for well. Nothing necessarily oxidation, but I'm sure there's some oxidation of some of those malt compounds, that residual malt compounds underneath here that have gone on over the year that's kind of fallen off. It wasn't an intensely malt forward beer previously, because again there is a good amount of hop bitterness in here to really kind of cleanse everything out, but it tastes pretty good. It's very drinkable. Certainly after being in the fridge for a year. If somebody came over, I'd be a little apprehensive about mailing it out, to friends. But if somebody came by and wanted to try one of my beers and that's all I had in the fridge, I wouldn't be too concerned about giving that to them. All right, so let me try the cooked can. Let's call it that. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think I was kind of getting it a little on the nose. I didn't mention it, but this one definitely kind of has a little bit more of that, kind of like that malt sweetness, that sickly malt sweetness thing going on. It's not really, again, there's not a lot of like traditional real caramel malts in here, which you kind of get. Sometimes caramel malts really get this really over the top sickness in here. But yeah, there's some subtle metallic thing going on here, and yeah, there's just like a real sweet cloying flabbiness thing going on that's kind of not in this one. This one, it finishes drier and has a nicer kind of has a nicer structure to the beer. This one is really comes off as more sweet, which when we're looking at an alt beer, which should be more skewed on the bitter side, is really kind of interesting. Yeah, this one's just more drinkable. Again, like I said, I think some of the flavors in here fell off, but slightly they fell off less than this guy. And again, I know these side by side things. I'm probably showing some bias here. I really kind of expected this one to be darker, but they look identical. Yeah, Tettnang. Yeah, yeah. This one too. I can really definitely taste the Tettnang in here. I know. I stopped and I was like, "Yeah, is there Tettnang hops in here?" And I just checked the can, and there is. I definitely get the Tettnang character from this sample. Again, this is the. It's probably not showing it on camera. This is the, you know, my well cared for can. I really, I really want to go back and redo this experiment when I put something else in cans. I kind of probably want to, I'll probably just do something more extreme, like just have my can, the can I'm going to cook, just set it for, you know, probably set it at 160 for, 3-4 hours, put them in the fridge, give them a week or so to chill down, and then redo this kind of video, and see what I think of them, and then probably try to pick them out in a triangle, because yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's definitely initially just off the aroma. Yeah. There's more of that honey like sweetness in here. It's definitely in there. But again, I'm probably, there's definitely some bias here probably that I'm not acknowledging, and maybe that's not the case. But I'm definitely gonna probably try this again at some point. I'll take one of my cans, I'll put it aside, one of the good cans that looks like a good seal, and cook it, and then rather than doing the experiment a year later, do it, a week later, and then see what I think in the beers, and then probably just do a kind of self-administered triangle test to just try to pick it out, rather than sitting here and saying, yeah, there's definitely a difference. Really try to prove it out. So yeah, yeah, yeah. As they warm, the more I try the different ones. This one is definitely, again, this guy is a bit more on the, I don't know what's wrong with it. Who knows? Maybe part of it is that I've essentially freaking what am I trying to say? Pasteurized it. There you go. Maybe part of the reason why this one tastes different is the pasteurization, whereas this one tastes a little bit better, even though it's been in the can a year. Neither one of them are blowing my socks off yet, right now, but there's definitely something different going on. So let me wrap it up here. This is a good starting point for an experiment going forward, I think. Next time I'll definitely do something similar and try to cook the can again, and try it in a week and see if there's any obvious signs of oxidation going on, versus, say a can that's cared for and been kept cold during that period, and we'll go from there. And finally, I want to send a shout out thanking the BrewTubers Club sponsors, 5 Star Chemicals and Beer and Wine Hobby, for supporting the club financially, and really making making the club as great as it is. And with that, I'll see you later. Cheers.